Hi there. In this video, I want to talk a bit about the dangers of the modern algorithmic web landscape and how to escape from it to the degree that you can. So just back up a minute and think about how amazing it is to be able to have a website. You can put any words or images you want online, and any one of the over 2 billion people on Earth who have access to the internet have the ability to read them. They just need to know the URL. And sure, the vast majority of them will never know that URL, and a big chunk of them probably don't even speak the same language as you in the first place, even if they did. But this is still more power to spread your words than any king or president has ever had for all of human history. Just think about what Martin Luther would have given to be able to post his 95 Theses online, for example. And I haven't even said the best part about it, though, which is that your words will stay put. Well, as long as they aren't illegal, and as long as you can afford the cost of paying a host or running your own server if need be. We can all erect monuments to ourselves and have the whole world be able to see them for our lifetimes. Of course, we can't continue paying for web hosting after our deaths, because even digital things are ultimately impermanent. But this is not new. Even Shakespeare or Milton couldn't guarantee that every one of their manuscripts wouldn't be burned after their death. This is where the importance of leaving a legacy to posterity comes in. And Shakespeare's works are with us today precisely because so many people went to the trouble of copying them. This much hasn't changed, but compare how much more of a guarantee you have even here. For a work to stay alive in the past, a scribe would have had to write it all word for word on some dusty piece of parchment. And you'd better hope that he liked your work enough for it to be worth hours of tedious copying and a cramped hand with untreatable carpal tunnel syndrome and eyes made bleary from hours of squinting in dim candlelight. Compare that to today, where copying, archiving, and spreading your words is a matter of a few keyboard clicks. The most famous kings on Earth could not have dreamed of having this kind of legacy. And the worst thing of it all is that most people who use the web today do so in a way that directly undermines all of this. We've gone from being kings erecting monuments to piggies gorging on slop. So I only started noticing this when I recently began using a program called FreeTube, and keep it on the down low because Google will probably try to smother this video on YouTube if you mention it too much, but I can't shill it enough. So let me explain exactly what this program can do and why it's important. It basically lets you use YouTube with the usual perks like uBlock Origin and Sponsor Block, but in a program on your computer instead of on YouTube's site. You can route everything through Invidious if you want to as well, and that already is fantastic. But for the really good stuff, you can add only the channels you want to subscribe to. If you have a ton of subscriptions, you can quickly import them from your profile, but in my case, it was a good exercise to actually scroll through all those subscriptions and see which ones I really wanted to keep, and honestly, it was about maybe a third of them. So now your homepage will be only your subscribers in reverse chronological order, i.e. what you see when you click on your My Subscription to the normal YouTube homepage. And just doing that is really revealing, but I also did a lot of the following. I turned off recommended videos from the sidebar and from the end of the videos, so I'm just looking at a video on its own. I got rid of all the shorts from the platform. Thank fuck for that, because I'm not clogged with those when I search now. And I replaced, there's a thing where you can replace all the thumbnails to what like they used to be forced on YouTube, where they are actual stills from the video, like I always do in my videos, by the way. But actual stills from the video instead of images of guys cooming into the camera with these big soy faces with text like, "I just fucking killed the president of Zimbabwe 100%, not clickbait, click here to watch me skull fuck his corpse. Also, I'm gonna delete my channel and kill myself unless you subscribe." So, none of that, just actually what's in the video. And that's important because a lot of the times when you see what's actually in the video, you're like, oh, this is just a guy talking in the camera for 40 minutes. Why would I watch this bullshit? So what you essentially do is remove the algorithm from YouTube. And when I did that, the scales fell from my eyes. It's amazing when you take a step back and look at YouTube with no algorithm, and then realize the degree that Google has slopified the web with these algorithms, which were probably forged by Satan himself. I don't really know how to structure my observations, but these are the main ones I had and how they build on each other. Like 99% of videos on YouTube are on the same level of shitty reality TV shows from the early 2000s. And you don't notice just how bad they are until you isolate them from the comments and the likes and the recommended videos sidebar and all the other psychological manipulation. When I'm just forced to watch a video on its own and take that extra step, I often find myself stopping them a lot sooner because I notice how shit they are a lot more quickly. And when you don't get it slopped to you on the front page, you actually have to think about what you're in the mood to watch. And this is a great thing. It makes you engage with the content and, as a byproduct, be more critical and skeptical about it. And you often have that feeling of, is this really what I want to spend my day watching? More often. You realize that most YouTube so-called content is really secondary, sloppified, derivative stuff related to something more original. It's made me less likely to watch a video about a game or an anime or a movie and more likely to just go watch that game, anime, or movie directly. And this coming from me, who already complains all the time about how Zoomers never experience anything firsthand anymore. And note about the above, this doesn't mean I don't have time for, so-called mindless content and fun anymore. I just spend my time doing something more real and worth being proud of. Make no mistake, even just spending all day playing video games and watching anime is a day much, much better spent than one spent all day watching YouTube. You're at least setting a goal and accomplishing it in a game, you're following a visual storytelling in an anime. YouTube videos are rotted even below this low bar. Our parents used to say you should spend your time outside doing something real instead of just doing something on a screen. Now we don't even play the games on the screens ourselves anymore. We've somehow made it even more passive and sloppified. That said, I do find myself still watching some channels for comfort when I need something extra mindless. I watch a lot of old AVGN reviews for nostalgic comfort, for example, but I spend a lot less time doing that. I get a good fix of it and then realize when I'm ready for something more substantial. YouTube's algorithm is like the equivalent of some slop food company that makes the food intentionally addicting so that you have a whole bag of candy when you actually would be satisfied with only having a few pieces. On FreeTube, I often find myself doing the equivalent of noticing when my stomach is full early a lot more often. And when I need background noise while I'm playing a game or something, I find myself listening to my own music much more often, which is an amazing improvement. And I realized very quickly how insidious this gets when the content you engage with has anything to do with politics. Back in the 1920s, how would you get your news? You'd maybe pick up a newspaper from a stand and stand there for 10 minutes on the way to or from work, and then move on. It's funny to me to see old silent movies from the 20s and their symbolism for how hectic and fast-paced everything is in the big city is that people have to read their newspapers while riding on the subway. This might have changed a bit with radio and TV, but you still had a specific time and location carved out of your day to do your news stuff with radio and TV. You had your period for news to integrate and deal with new information and think about it. And then when you went back to living your so-called normal life, if you don't take aggressive action, you can't have that kind of boundary anymore. The algorithm wants you to consume news slop constantly, and this is the most dangerous kind, as it's usually meant to make you feel angry or hopeless. And in Industrial Society and Its Future, Kaczynski described a pathologism of the modern left that he called oversocialization, and I'll just quote from him. Quote, psychologists use the term socialization to designate the process by which children are trained to think and act as society demands. A person is said to be well socialized if he behaves in and obeys the moral code of his society and fits in well as a functioning part of that society. It may seem senseless to say that many leftists are over-socialized, since the leftist is perceived as a rebel. Nevertheless, the position can be defended. Many leftists are not such rebels as they seem. The moral code of our society is so demanding that no one can think, feel, and act in a completely moral way. For example, we're not supposed to hate anyone, yet almost everyone hates somebody at some time or other, whether he admits it to himself or not. Some people are so highly socialized that the attempt to think, feel, or act morally imposes a severe burden on them. In order to avoid feelings of guilt, they continually have to deceive themselves about their own motives and find moral explanations for feelings and actions that in reality have a non-moral origin. We use the term oversocialized to describe such people, unquote. Of course, Uncle Ted only attributed this to the left, but today everyone is over-socialized, right or left. There's a dangerous crossbreed of entertainment and politics where people now grab random political content to put on as background noise instead of music, or rants about video games or whatever. And of course, the angrier and more unhinged it is, the more entertaining it is to listen to. And the societies into which the consumers of this kind of content are over-socialized are so different from each other, and so different from what we want the modern world to be like, that it's hard to bridge the gap, which is the scariest part. I don't encourage apathy about current events, but I do think that most people today are being driven literally insane by being constantly bombarded with existential crises in the news pregnant with meaning. No one in history was ever made to think about the fate of things this much larger than their own sphere of influence, nor were they made to think about them this often, nor were they ever presented in a way this, full of spectacle. Lastly, I want to emphasize the point that I knew all about how evil the algorithms of major social media sites, including YouTube, were. I knew this already, but you delude yourself into thinking that you resist the power of algorithms by merely being aware of them. You don't do that. Maybe some people who are really, really, high level can, but I can't. I want to be clear, though. I'm not supporting censorship of any form of content. I despise censorship in all forms. I don't think the problem here is one of content. It's one of form. That is, it's not a problem of what we watch, but the context in which it's being presented to us. I have to admit that I have what might be called a kind of libertarian streak about this, in that I think that in an ideal world, all information would be free, and that we should always err on the side of free information. But I urge you to take care of yourself here, just as I would encourage people to be careful with their consumption of stuff like alcohol and certain drugs, despite the fact that I don't think they should be illegal. So, finally, I'll give some concrete advice. This is how I choose to live in our modern fucked world, and I recommend most of it. I only read news from a few trusted news sites and from real physical newspapers. Your local paper, I'm not kidding, is probably the best place to get your news. First, it's about things near you, so it's about things you can have more of a direct control over, and thus will help you direct your attention and concern more productively. Second, even the worst local paper has better editorial standards in terms of misinformation than the average YouTube pundit. At the end of the day, they really are still the best way to get news, and you usually don't have to buy them. They're around everywhere. You can read them at the corner store a lot of the time, and if you do have to buy them, they're good to use for composting and use as paper towels to clean up messes. They're very easily recyclable. So I augment looking at my local papers with some sites for things that I care most about, which is usually stuff about ecology and the environment, and some podcasts that I find to be of quality. Related to the above, I also use RSS feeds to access that news and my other favorite sites, and you can even do this for YouTube channels, but at that point I would say just get FreeTube. It makes it easier to check all the sites you care about at a quick glance, and I suggest making a section for news. This is great because it keeps you from wasting an hour reading the past 10 articles in their sidebar. You just know what's new and what you need to stay informed, then move on with your day and look at something more rewarding. In general, I spend less and less time online on sites that aren't owned by individuals instead of corporations. And a lot of people live under an illusion, and so did I, until I looked at the traffic some sites actually get. You'd be shocked how many people are actually reading small pages today. Because the internet is so much more centralized around just a few sites today, it's easy to have the illusion that everything outside of those sites is a ghost town. And in proportional terms, sure, but that's just because in a way we've been kind of brainwashed into thinking that the internet needs to move at a speed which is the same speed that all the major sites move at. But when you actually adjust the numbers for how much more of the world is just online in general today, I wouldn't be surprised if the average hobbyist site gets more views today than it would have back in like 2003, provided it makes enough decent connections to other small sites. Of course, I have no stats for this, and I'm just going off vibes, but the point stands. If you make a few good connections to other small hobbyist sites, you'd be surprised how many people will start visiting the site. And I mean connections in a very genuine, organic, friendly way, not in a corpo-speak way of clout, like on YouTube and whatever. And basically all this advice amounts to is just do more real shit in the real world, including on your computer, because playing a game is more of the real world than watching a YouTube video or a streamer. And the algorithms keep us faker and more removed from everything cool, direct, and real than ever before. And be cool, have fun, and enjoy yourself. And I don't mean this lightly. Today, when we're about ready to destroy the foundations of human civilization because of how rotted our brains are from social media, it's more important than ever to reestablish zones that are chill and fun and escapist. A friend of mine once said that the developers of Street Fighter III Third Strike did more than any US government program to improve racial relations in the US, and he was absolutely right. And no, I won't stop using YouTube or uploading my stuff here for the time being, and I won't stop looking at comments. I use YouTube still on my phone, and I get notifications of when people comment, and a lot of people here make very thoughtful comments, and I always read all of them, and I'm very appreciative for them. So thank you for your comments and engagement. But yeah, in the long run, I guess I'm on YouTube in a way to try to shuffle people off into better parts of the internet too, like my PeerTube instance and so on. So thank you for listening, and have a good day. Bye.